in this election to economics and the border. One issue that you have not heard a lot about is education, outside of Project 2025 and Donald Trump wanting to get rid of the Department of Education. Well, a coalition for charter schools called the Freedom Coalition for Charter Schools, they want Harris and Trump plus ABC News tomorrow to focus on the crisis affecting black children. Joining us right now are two members of the coalition, Dr. Steve Perry, the founder of Capital Preparatory Schools and former NBA player and founder and board president of the Jalen Rose Leadership Academy. Jalen Rose, glad to have both of you here. So let's start right here. Steve, when you look at this whole election, education hasn't gotten talked about. Folks talking about economics, they're talking about the economy, they're talking about what happened after COVID. But when you look at the stats, it shows the devastating impact not only COVID had on black kids, but what was happening with black kids prior to COVID.
Yeah, so first of all, thank you, Roland, for having this conversation because it's so important. We're literally talking about tens of millions of black children who are currently languishing in schools that are not meeting their most basic academic needs. And the reason why is because the conversation is not about the Department of Education, it's about the Department of Employment. The conversation that Vice President Harris and former President Trump are having is about the people who work in the schools, not about the children who need an education. In America, we see a tragic achievement gap. And what that means is that there's a significant disparity between the academic performance of black children and white children. And the reason why is because so few children attend schools who are African American that have their best interests at heart. In fact, what we see is African American children are most likely to attend some of the poorest performing schools in the United States of America. It's not because the children are disinterested in learning or because their parents don't value education. It's because of the lower expectations that are put upon them in the schools that are typically neighborhood schools. We have answers. Charter schools, public charter schools have outperformed traditional neighborhood schools for the past 30 years since their inception, in large part because they were designed to solve a problem, the problem of the academic achievement gap. So we impress upon ABC News to reach out on both sides and ask the honest questions. What are y'all going to do to make sure that the tens of millions of black children in the United States of America who are among the worst served by the traditional public schools receive access to a world-class education?
Jalen, when we talk about, again, this whole issue, look, I'm from Texas, and you got Governor Greg Abbott, who's been trying to push through his voucher bill, which frankly I call it a voucher scam. We see what's happening in Tennessee. Billionaires are funding these things. And the reality is they're trying to prop up religious schools. They're trying to prop up private schools. And it's not about the kids. It's not about low performing schools. It's not about low performing kids. No, they don't give a damn. It's about providing big checks to suburban families to send their kids to public school. That's what's going on here. And again, the people who are being left out of this conversation are the kids who are unfortunately going to low performing schools where they don't have the resources, they don't have top-notch teachers, they don't have the kinds of facilities that are needed. That's what's going on.
Absolutely, Roland, and thank you for leading this conversation, this very important conversation that's solely ignored by both sides of each political party. And one of the things I want to stress is a lot of times I hear people having these conversations that truly are unqualified. And here's what I mean. I'm someone that attended a Detroit public school. I founded a charter school, and I was fortunate enough to put my kids in private school. So I've seen all sides of this. And what has happened is instead of it being about education, this topic has become political in a lot of ways. Now, for the Republicans, since the beginning of time, they've been able to distinguish the quality of someone's education by their zip code, which is why you see so many people since the beginning of time trying to find ways to use a different zip code to put their son or their daughter in a better performing school versus the one that's in their community that's been failing since the beginning of time. And so with that suburban dynamic, they get better policing, better ambulances, better supermarkets, and better care really for their young people, which is why, as you started this segment by saying Trump even went so far to say, defund public schools. Now for the Democrats, here's a different level of politicism that they're dealing with. The teachers union And what ends up happening is they don't want to do or say anything that's going to upset the apple cart to the donations that they get. And as a founder of a charter school, I respect the value of teachers so much. I think they're the hardest working, underappreciated demographic of people that we have in society that have the most important job. Think about it. They're raising your kids, they're educating your kids, and they still have to have the level of discipline and intellect to carry out their jobs while they're underappreciated in a lot of ways. Now, for the Democrats, it's in a lot of ways about teachers having tenure, and also they're assuming to the people who don't know any better that charter schools are taking students from public schools. Newsflash, my charter school is a public school. My charter school is a nonprofit organization. So there are a lot of things that get peddled to the public where people don't know the basics of what's happening in education. And for someone that opened up a tuition-free, open enrollment, public charter school, that's a 9 through 16 model. Why did I start a 9 through 16 model? Because in the United States, we really fail our young people after 12th grade. Think about your high school experience. Once you graduated, your high school didn't do nothing for you. But however, 2-year college or university, trade school, military, cosmetology, police academy, whatever our young people choose to do after high school, JRLA still provides that secondary support. And you only can get that infrastructure via a charter school.
See, here's the thing here, Steve, that when we talk about, and Jason touched on this, how this conversation goes. And you have folks with agendas on both sides. You have, first of all, there are teachers unions who want to see teachers at charter schools unionize. What you also have is and of course, teachers unions are significant supporters of the Democratic Party. That's just a fact. On the flip side is you got a lot of Republicans who would love nothing better to get rid of teachers unions because they hate the fact that they are significant donors of the Democratic Party. And so you got motives. I remember speaking at a school choice conference here in Washington, D.C. And I literally said, why are y'all here? Are you here for the kids or are you here for the party? And I said, now, if y'all here for the party, I said, I need y'all to get the hell out. I'm here for the kids. And I said, and then I challenged them. I said, and I literally said to them, and Steve, you might remember when you called me and the white woman in Texas wanted your help for a voucher bill. And you like, listen, I ain't from Texas, but Roland is. And you called me. And the first thing I said to her was, I said, why is your boy all white? Then I asked her, I said, do you know who the charter school leaders are that are black and Latino in Houston, Dallas, San Antonio? She was like, no. I said, oh, so you want me and Steve to come in and get black people to come support the bill? I said, but you don't even know who the black people are in your state. And I was like, y'all gonna lose. And I advise you the next 2 years to go learn who the black people are. That's what we're facing. There are people who want to use black and Latino people as props and not confront the actual education crisis.
Let me give you a specific, for instance. One of the places where we have schools is in Bridgeport, Connecticut. Bridgeport, Connecticut's public schools are overwhelmingly black and Latin. Dare I say over 95% African American and Latin. Yet, almost 90% of the teachers are white. 90%. And of that 90%, over 90% live in the suburbs. The Urban Education Index is a suburban employment scheme. Those folks don't even buy an apple in the hood. They don't even pay for parking in the hood. They're not from our community, and in many cases, they are not for our community. And I struggle to distinguish between the left or the right because neither one of them have come forward with an openness to the kind of honest conversation that actual practitioners like Jalen and I have. We are two people who spent our day today in urban schools. We actually do the work. We are not some hoity-toity college professors who are on high talking about things such as pedagogy. We are not politicians who are simply trying to maintain the status quo of racial segregation. we are out here busting our knuckles on the concrete, creating opportunities for living, breathing Black and Latin children, finding ways to make sure that this 300-year-old system that was designed to ensure that white people continue to maintain control, that is the epitome of white supremacy. The neighborhood public school system is the epitome. It is the driving force behind white supremacy. So when we have brothers like Jalen and I, and sisters like Dr. Charlene Reed, as well as parents like Miss Sarah down in Tennessee, coming together with brothers like Jeff Canada and Dr. Howard Fuller, people who have spent their entire career coming up with real solutions, saying, hey, can y'all at least consider our perspective when you make up these goofy policies? When you disregard that, both sides are equally culpable in the demise of African-American children.
But here's the thing right here, and this is part of the issue, Jalen, and I'm going to go to my panel next with questions, and that is this here. This issue, our children have been fundamentally failed by mainstream media. When you watch these debates, I go back to 4 years ago, I go back to 8 years ago, you do not have substantive discussions about education when it comes to these debates. You simply don't have them. Now, in Black media, Black-owned media, Black-targeted media, you don't have substantive conversations about traditional schools, charter schools. Look, when I created school choice as a Black choice, there were people who were like, well, you're not an educator. I was like, yeah, you're right, but I got 9 nieces, 4 nephews. So why in the hell I can't care about education? Oh, by the way, I'm also an employer. So I kind of got to care about education because I need folks being properly educated who I'm going to be hiring in the future. And that's part of the problem here. We have this whole attitude that somehow you can't speak about education if you're not an educator. That's crazy. But we have a media institution that is failing us because even when we talk about charter schools, I have gone to many places and I've said point blank, I support every form of education that works. Traditional schools, if it's working, I'm down with it. If it's magnet schools, I went to 2. If it's charter school, online school, home school, if it's trade school, if it is working, I'm down with it. On the flip side, if it's not working, what I'm not going to do is keep supporting something that is all about failure.
I totally.
Go ahead.
I get where you're coming from, and think about it. As you were speaking and you were naming the types of schools, it reminded me of something. This is such a nonpartisan topic that has become so political because other than the air we breathe, going to school is something we all have in common in one way, shape, or form pretty much. As you just mentioned, homeschool, magnet school, charter school, public school, suburban school, private school. At some point, each of us attend a school. Now, the difference is your ability financially to put you in a better neighborhood to go to your neighborhood school or to be put in a private school. But as you guys have very well acknowledged, Black and brown kids who grow up in the inner city usually don't have that option because they grow up in families where their parents don't make that kind of money to make that kind of move. Charter schools have existed in Michigan for 30 years. I've had my school for 14 years. And you're right, this topic continues to be ignored because the same topic has been politicized. And also I want to say this, it's not just the parties, it's the pawns that the parties send out to parrot their hollow messages while ignoring this important fact about education. So we hope tomorrow's debate doesn't do what both parties have continued to do. That's ignore the plight of education in urban communities. I was just, as Dr. Steve Perry acknowledged, I was at my school today, Roland, and I literally got on the Lodge Freeway to come do this interview, and it reminded me of the blight in my neighborhood and how underfunded my community is. And I looked to my left, all I saw was a food desert, cemetery, and something else that's really sad that's happening now. There's a place where you used to be able to get petroleum for your car. Now, basically, they're dressed up as liquor stores where you can buy gas. So the plight of our young people is not being educated, isn't just for the inner city, by the way. Here's why. Because we want everybody to have access to a quality education, because if everybody doesn't get access to a quality education, you don't want that young person all of a sudden going to the streets and being that young person that's trying to stick a gun in your face while you're at the ATM machine. You want everybody to have the quality public education opportunity that their suburban counterparts get in the inner city as well.
I'm going to go to our panel for questions. Let me first start with Julianne. Julianne, go.
Steve Perry, I respect your work immensely, and my brother from Detroit, you as well. At the same time, I am a lifetime educator, former college president, blah, 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 blah. And one of the things that bothers me about the embracing of charter schools, when the data are not definitive, that charter schools do better than public schools. Public schools are not perfect, but charter schools, there is no definitive data about that. And what charter schools do, or public schools do rather, in my mind, is level the playing field so that we're all having an basically even opportunity. You can shake your head all you want to, brother. I'm going to tell you what I have to say. And what I have to say is that there's some challenges here in terms of access and asset. And I really have some challenges with the way that you guys go after public schools when I think that public schools do level the playing field. Tell me what you think.
Steve Perry, you first.
Malveaux,
Steve, you first.
Certainly, Dr. Malveaux, with all great respect, one of the schools that I believe that you were president of was a private school, yes?
Absolutely.
So, right. So clearly you have no problem with leading the private.
Yeah, right. Hold on. Yes. Yeah, hold up. For folks who don't, Bennett College, private school for women. Steve, go.
So here's what the truth tells us. The truth tells us that for 300 years, public schools have not served Black children, not just from 1954, but ever. By putting children in schools based upon their zip code, which is a proxy for race, the United States of America has consistently underperformed in serving its children. So it is fantasy to say that neighborhood schools create a level playing field. It's just not true. As much as we want to romanticize it, the fact is there would not be an achievement gap if it leveled the playing field. By design, the notion of leveling means that we end up with the same outcomes. If we don't end up with the same outcomes, it is by design unequal. And what often happens is we use poverty as a proxy for race. When we remove poverty and we use only race, even middle-class Black children are not receiving a fair American public education. And to your point, sister, the Credo study by Stanford University, a 30-year study, just produced yet again examples of how charter schools actually do outperform neighborhood schools. So if your concern about charter schools was that they did not outperform neighborhood schools, and I've now again shown you that they do by talking about the most recent Credo study by Stanford University, a respected also private college. And if I also can show you that there are over 300 years of examples of Black people who are being forced into schools that simply do not meet their needs. If that doesn't do it, then I'll take you here. 1.3% of all teachers in the United States of America are Black men. 1.3%. One of the reasons why only 1.3% of all teachers in the United States of America are Black men is because Black men have had such a horrible experience, guess where? In public schools. We as a group are the most suspended, expelled, disciplined, most likely to drop out, most easily determined to be special needs, and quite frankly, underserved. So to say that that system, which is the epitome of inherent racism, is leveling the playing field when there's absolutely no evidence of such. None.
I'm gonna let Jalen step in here, but I do want to provide this data point right here. Go to my iPad. just so people understand, this is from, of course, publiccharters.org. The total percentage of students in charter schools nationally is 7.4%. That means that 92.6% of all students are either in traditional or private. They're not. So just 7.4% of students are in charter schools. Now, you have a disproportionate number in a number of your urban cities, but that's the total number. Jalen, go.
Thank you for creating this platform, Roland. And I just want to debunk a few things that continue to be said about charter schools. I have an open enrollment, tuition-free public charter school that I independently started at 9th grade, which means 90% of the young people that I meet when they first arrive aren't doing math or reading at a 9th grade level. So a lot of the work we have to do is more than just in the classroom. It's life skills, it's social skills, it's etiquette. It's putting them in position for growth so they can be successful members of society. What has happened is our young people are now only flagged by their SAT, ACT, and GPA, when it's a lot more than nurturing a young person than just that statistic, than just those statistics. The next thing, when we don't cherry pick students, and you mentioned, I believe, being from Detroit, what up, though? Since you were young, the only two quality schools that people bragged on are still the same ones people are bragging on now. That is Cass Tech and Renaissance. And they do great work with those scholars. And you know one thing they do that we don't do? They test in students before 9th grade, and they test them out before 10th grade. I'm an open enrollment school that's not only nurturing those scholars while they're in high school, I also created a secondary education program where we can support them post-graduation, 2-year college or university, military, trade school, cosmetology, whatever business, whatever they decide to get into, I'm still there to nurture them. So as someone who actually attended a public high school in Detroit, I actually live and know the difference. The misnomers that are getting put out there about charter schools are so inaccurate. It's really about this, everyone. The teachers union is a large donor to the Democratic Party, in particular on that side. We already talked about on the Republican side how this current candidate they have, Trump, already talked about just getting rid of public schools. And because of that dynamic of the teachers union, this is not about educating young people. It's about two things. It's about keeping tenure, which means in Michigan, in 5 years, in many states, it's 3 years, you can basically not be great at your job and still have that job forever. And another misnomer is we're not taking students from public schools. You know why? I am a public school. So I just wanted to address those couple of points. And again, I'm glad this conversation is being had so that we can clear up a lot of misnomers that are being said inaccurately about public charter schools.
Before I go to Congo, everybody who's watching, do me a favor. If you go to our YouTube channel, type in "School Choice is the Black Choice." We've actually covered this. I dare say we've covered this extensively more than anybody in Black-owned media over the past decade, okay? I've had numerous segments. I've had people for and against. I've had Randy Weingarten. I've had Senator Tim Scott. I've had all kinds of different people. And so if you go to our YouTube channel, and I just go to my iPad, you see it right here. Folks, these are literally all segments that most of these are of ours, segments that we have done, interviews with people, specials that we've done. You see, this was a special at Morehouse. We were in Sacramento. We were in Philadelphia. We were in Atlanta. We were in Indianapolis. We go on and on. We were in New Orleans. We can go on and on and on. You can actually go see that. You see this right here, School Choice All-Stars. We actually interviewed top performing. This is an ad right here. Give me a second. It's going to come back to me. But you're going to see it in a second. We actually interviewed top performing Black charter school operators because we wanted to focus on Black people who own and controlled their public charter schools. Congo, go.
Yes, Mr. Rose, I had a question for you about your 9 to 16 model. I want to know what advice would you give to other charter schools or other public schools, and what's up, Dr. Perry, appreciate all your work as well, who really have that desire to start supporting students after they graduate from high school? Because you're absolutely right. It's after they get that diploma, it's, hey, nice having you, good luck with everything. What does that model look like? Can you give us some concrete ideas of what that looks like?
Absolutely, and thank you for the question. If I was a billionaire, this is something I would coin, not only in the city of Detroit, the state of Michigan, but it's something that should carry throughout the country. In a blue-collar town like Detroit, you used to could grow up, parent, get a job at the plant. I had parents, my mom worked at Chrysler, uncles worked at GM and Ford, everybody worked at a plant, get a car on the A plan, put your kid in a nice school and put yourself in position to be a working class successful person, even without a high school diploma. Now with the high school diploma, and that's the only thing on your resume, a lot of times when you fill out a job opportunity, you know what they do? And throw it in the garbage because they don't care about a high school diploma anymore. And so while we're celebrating graduating from 12th grade and throwing our hats in the air, the job ain't done. It's a see you later. So we created what we call a group of people in our building that form our secondary education team, where they're nurturing you while you're in high school to put you in position to be successful when you graduate. They're helping you fill out your forms to get to school. They're making sure they're helping you fill out our CTE program so you can be a part of that and have a certificate and a diploma once you graduate from high school. And then when you graduate from high school, they're giving you college visits. We're fundraising for our young people also. High schools nowadays ain't fundraising for nobody when they graduate. We're still doing that at JRLA because we're a charter school, and it gives me the independent autonomy to put something like that in play. So thank you for that question, and it's something that's sorely needed in the scope of education, period, because the job isn't done after 12th grade.
Joy.
This is such a great conversation because it's a conversation where we all don't agree. It's not a monolithic answer. And so there are great charter schools, great public schools, and then there are those who are not. I love it. What I'd like to know is, what do you want, if you had a question, if you were leading the debate tomorrow night, what would you ask both Trump and Harris?
So if I were to start, that's a great question, sis. What I want to know is what either candidate is going to do to expand opportunities for African Americans to attend better schools. Also, I'd want to know, what are they prepared to do to ensure that more Black people can start and run schools? And finally, what I'd be interested in knowing is, how is it that they plan to deal with this profound gap in both academic achievement and participation on the other side of African American men in education?
So let me say this here. Go to my iPad. So this is a post that was on our YouTube channel moments ago. Karan Jamar Kenner. This is the only topic that I vehemently disagree with rolling on. Charter schools destroy public schools, mismanage funding, and cut corners, putting more stress on the educators. See, this right here, this is the problem. It's a broad statement, and it's a lie.
That's cap.
Literally.
Now, let me be very,
Literally a lie.
Now, let me be perfectly clear. Are there charter schools that mismanage funds? Yes. Are there traditional schools and school districts that mismanage funds? Yes.
Yes.
Are there, you say there are charter schools destroy public schools. If the traditional schools were not destroying themselves, then there would be no charter schools. I mean, hold on. No, I'm not done. It says they cut corners. There are some charter schools that have cut corners. There are a lot of traditional schools that cut corners. See, it says putting more stress on the educators. If you want to see stress, go talk to a lot of traditional public schools. See, this right here, what Karan Jamar Kenner just said, is what I have encountered from numerous people. And let me say this again. Jalen is right there in Detroit. There have been some awful charter schools in Detroit that have no business being in business. And there are some awful public traditional schools that have no business being in business. There have been people working for the Detroit public schools who have embezzled funds, who have gone to prison. And there have been people who have been overpaying themselves and not doing right in charter schools. So let me say this again for everybody who goes into this, oh, charter schools steal money, this, that, and the other. Let me be clear. There are some bad actors, a lot of bad actors in traditional schools. Why? Because it's more. And there are bad actors in the charter school movement. And what I have said directly to charter school leaders, and Steve has heard me say it at conferences and thousands of people in the audience, run their punk asses out of the movement. I've said because those are the people who cause the problems. Now, how many people have the guts to say, let's also run out awful superintendents, awful school boards, awful administrators, awful principals, and awful teachers. See, people, I remember, oh, God, whose forum? I know we streamed it. It was a forum I moderated. It was in D.C. Reverend Jackson was on the panel. Randy Weingold was on the panel. And I literally said, there are some sorry teachers. Some dude said, no, it's not. I said, your ass lying. Matter of fact, I said, you know what show I'm lying? I said, all the teachers in the room, raise your hand. And hands went up. I then said, how many of y'all teachers in the room know y'all work with some sorry teachers? And them hands stayed up. So I'm like, why do we sit here and lie about it? There are listen, I'm a journalist, and I just said this that night. I said, there's some sorry-ass people in journalism. And I don't want their asses in journalism. I said, but I'm bold enough to actually say, I don't want their asses in journalism. I said, so educators and charter school people gotta stop playing games by not wanting to call out folk who are bad actors in the profession.
Correct. And by the way, this should be a nonpartisan topic, but what makes it political is the business that comes with charter schools versus public schools. And you just said your own answer, Roland. Why can't teachers who are ineffective, why can't administrators who are ineffective basically get fired? I'm going to introduce you to the word. It's called tenure. That's the power of the public school and the donations that they're giving to the Democratic Party. And for the Republican Party, they just want to ignore public schools altogether because they want the quality of your education to be what it always has been, defined by your zip code. And so I want to go back to that tweet.
Hold on, Jalen.
Yes, sir.
I come from Houston Independent School District. Houston Independent School District has open enrollment. You don't have to go to your neighborhood school. But here's the problem. Black kids who are zoned to Jack Yates High School, who may go to Sterling or Worthing or somewhere else, they still enrolling in bad schools. And so it is the infrastructure, it is what the focus is, and this is people keep asking me, and Steve, I'm gonna go to you, people keep asking me, then I'm gonna go to you, Julianne, they keep asking me, Roland, why do you support charter schools? And I say, there was a sister in Chicago who created her own school, but it was private. And she used a Socratic teaching method. Her name was Dr. Marva Collins. But here's what happened. Why did her school shut down? And I remember personally talking to her before she died when I was trying to get assistance for my 4 nieces when my wife and I were raising them. And this would happen. Black folks couldn't afford to send their kids to her school. So then her daughter took the school over. Then the school shut down. Her daughter, unfortunately, took her life by suicide. That's what happened while her mother was still alive. So people say, well, why do you support charters? I said, because. And then I remember Randy Weingarten say, well, white racists created charter schools. I said, white racists created, hold up. But no, I said, hold on, wait, no, but this was my answer. I said, white racists created every damn system in America. That don't mean that we're not involved in this same shit. This is what I said. If there is a system, I don't give a damn how it was created. If there is a system that allows for black people to take and control the school, control the money, control the contracts, control the curriculum, and control the hiring, shit, I'm down for it. Because, Steve, I'm gonna go to you then Julianne. You cannot name me a single traditional school that we actually control. And when I say control, meaning, Steve, you run 2 or 3. The reality is this here. You run it, you control it, you got 5. You run it, you control it, you can establish the curriculum. If you want more arts and band and drama and all of that, you can do it. If you want black history, you can do it. But you also have to perform. And I then said, if we can control it, I'm down with it. That's why. Steve and Julianne, go.
Think about this, Roland, to stay with what your point was. Our schools are founded by black people. Our schools employ, in Connecticut, the highest percentage of black teachers in the entire state. The entire state. And in Connecticut, we're at about just south of 60% African American, 75% of our administrators are African American. That's in Connecticut. But in New York, over 85% of our faculty are black. And 100% of our administrators are black. We have schools founded by us, for us, in our own communities. We are our ancestors' wildest dreams. We are the public. We have every right to every public dollar that everyone else does, and I dare say more so, because those people who have had complete control of the dollars have made sure that there are 2 and 3 times as many white kids who can read at or above grade level than black children. Also, it's important to understand, to your point, Roland, it's not just about hiring black faculty. It's not just about determining what our curriculum is. We can hire black contractors and Latin contractors. We get to do what we wish to do. This is the epitome of liberation. This is the goal. Dr. Martin Luther King said American public schools do not know what to teach or how to teach. He also went on to say that what should happen is we should create educational parks. But I want to end this part here. One of the great misnomers in the conversation around education is we're not talking about black children in particular. What I mean by that is if you go to any cookout or any gathering of African Americans, one of the things that you're going to find are those parents who've had to go down to the school to make sure that their son was treated right, go down to the school to make sure that their daughter was allowed to get in an AP or honors class, go down to that's not the way schools work. Even when we do move to the suburbs, even when we have come up like the Jeffersons, our children are still the lowest performing children in the school. And there's a direct correlation between the percentage of African Americans who teach and run the school and the performance of African Americans in those schools. So to say that we support black people, but we don't support the most effective model in educating African Americans in the history of the country is to call into question our true support of them, and to say that we have sold our souls to an 80% white teachers union who has made us more concerned about the frailty of the white teachers than the broken promises to the black children.
Julianne, go.
I don't have enough time to debunk what Dr. Steve has said.
Debunk what? Debunk what?
About everything. First of all, this is not about the frailty of white teachers. It's about, if you look at what teachers unions have done for black teachers, you look at some states where black teachers were just summarily fired because they were black. That's what unions prevented from happening. So I think we have to take the whole picture. Secondly, I don't disagree about the way that Black folks can run education, can basically deal with education, can provide education. I also do not believe that charters are the answer. I've seen too many failed charter schools run by Black people, run by other people who didn't know what the bluck they were doing.
Okay, one second. Hold up. I got to ask you. Hold on. I got to ask you. You said, I don't believe charter schools are the answer. First of all, the operative word there is the. Are charter schools, no, hold on. I'm asking you this question. Are charter schools a part of the answer? I didn't say, are they the answer? Are they a part of the answer?
Absolutely, Roland.
Wait, hold up. Because there's somebody right now who's confused. So here's the point that Howard Fuller always makes, of course, who's a supporter of parent choice, who supports charters, who was the superintendent of Milwaukee Public Schools. Howard Fuller says what we have now is the education delivery system. What we're debating is the delivery. I said it earlier. You can have, when you say if there's an education pie, there's a slice that's the largest slice is traditional public. I went to traditional public and magnet. I ain't never been to private school. So you got traditional public magnet, traditional charter, homeschool, online. So here's what I don't understand, Julianne. If charters are a part of the answer, then what's the problem? You're correct. When people try to make it the answer, they're not the answer. But you can have, and you should have, successful public charter schools right alongside traditional schools. Why does it have to be either or?
I don't disagree with you at all, Roland. I think there's a continuum of educational delivery, as you say, from homeschooling to privates. I mean, I got put out of so many schools, private, public, every other kind. So, you know, I've had many experiences as a kid, and they probably didn't stick. But I just don't like the notion that we think public schools are bad. Public schools hinge on parental involvement. When parents are involved, we get a better result.
Okay, hold on. Okay, hold on, Susan. I'm sorry, Julianne. This is where. See, again, though, this is. Okay, you're right, but so do charter schools, and so do private, and so do magnet. And so here's the deal. Okay, Jalen is sitting right there. Steve is sitting right there. I guarantee you, they have horrible parental involvement stories. I guarantee you. So you're right, but this is, and then when you say, well, I don't like when people say public schools are horrible. Guess what? A lot are. So why can't we take the emotion out and go, if this school district has 100 schools, how many traditional schools, how many are high performing, how many are middle performing, and how many are low performing? And then the goal should be to get the low performing schools up to middle, the middle to high, and then once the low goes to middle, get them to high. That is calling it what? So what?
I don't disagree with you.
So I don't understand though, why then the opposition to charter if a charter school in a neighborhood, Sean Hartnett here in DC, I interviewed him on this show. He left a traditional school where black boys were failing in science and math. He created a charter school for black boys. He took the exact same black boys that were failing in the traditional school down the street. They came to his charter school and now they're passing. I'm saying, hell, yay, Sean. So I want to support Sean and I want to fix the traditional school. But what I don't want to do is say Sean can't open that school because we don't support charters.
I don't think it's an either or. I think it's a continuum. I think it's a continuum from, as you say, homeschooling. I think that parents have to figure out what's right for their kid. But I think that.
What if they can't? What if they can't?
And I agree with the brother who said.
But Julianne, what if they can't? Julianne, what if there's a parent who went to failing schools, who is the byproduct of parents who went to failing schools, what if they can't figure that out? What do we then do?
Well, I think that we have to look at the ways that we market education to ensure that parents have the opportunity to make choices. And maybe they can't make choices, but yes, they can.
No, Julianne, they can't. I'm sorry, Julianne, they actually can't. We have to own up to the reality that there are parents, white, black, Hispanic, who do not know, do not know how to make those decisions. I mean, and I just got Steve and Jalen. Y'all actually deal with this every day. I'm sure both of you have stories of parents that have come to your school, and to be honest, they are functionally illiterate. And you're having to now deal with them about their kids when the parent, him or her, is functionally illiterate.
So in the city of Detroit, 10% of adults have graduated from college. 10%. So that means usually the young person that graduates from 12th grade is the first person from their family, their block, their neighborhood to actually go to college. So they need that support. And a few things that keep getting said about charter schools, I want to debunk. Number one, market to make choice. That's exactly what we're doing, but we're doing it for charter schools. How about this? Too many failed charter schools. Yes, they're failed charter schools, but it's been failed traditional public schools since the beginning of time, eons of them. That's what made charter schools become an option in Michigan the last 30 years. Also, parental involvement. Yes, you have those parents who aren't as involved as you want them to be, but you know one of the things I'm able to create with the charter school? An intimate family destination for our young people where we can get to know the parents, we can get to know the families, we can get to know the students intimately inside and outside of the building, so therefore we can nurture them as young people. And also, when you're the founder of a charter school, which is why I'll probably be the last former athlete to even be in position to do something like this, because the mountain of paperwork is so high and the bureaucracy is so large. You get zero state funding for your facility. Zero state funding for your facility. So we call it bridging the education gap. We're talking about public education, Roland. The young person in the inner city of Detroit should get the same funds that the suburban young person is getting in Birmingham. When that's not happening, that creates an education gap that we try to close via these charter schools. And one other point, because we talked about serving our people. Our school is founded by two black men, Jalen Rose and Michael Carter. It's run by a black woman, Jasmine Allen. Our students are 100% black in the neighborhood that I grew up in. And it's almost like sports and HBCUs. The reason why athletes, for example, don't go to HBCUs is because those schools are underfunded and they don't have the facilities as the traditional white schools. And also, did everybody know that majority of HBCUs were actually founded by white people?
Steve, go ahead. So hold on one second. Steve, hold up. Steve and Julianne. Steve, go ahead.
So it's super important to lean on data. When the romanticization of our experiences in traditional schools fades and we start talking in facts, what we see is just last year, according to Blacks in Higher Education, only 19% of African Americans, test takers who took the ACT, were deemed as college ready. Only 19%. That means 81% of all black children who graduated from high school last year were not deemed college ready. By contrast, 53% of white children were deemed college ready. Again, to your point, Roland, most children go to public schools, neighborhood public schools. So they are the culprits here. They have the majority of the children, so you have to put the responsibility where it is due. Why is that the case? The overwhelming majority of teachers in traditional schools are white. The overwhelming majority of the expectations that are driven by children who look like their children, their family members, and them. That means that when people who work in schools are making the determination as to which courses they're going to put children in, when they're going to determine who deserves an AP class, who deserves an honors class, the people who they say deserve those are the ones who remind them of themselves. When they are looking to identify a child as having special needs or being violent or needing to be suspended, expelled, or in any way disciplined, it is the child who looks the least like them, the one who they have the lowest expectations for. And that is not just when we're looking at poverty. That's when we're looking at black as black as black. And to continue to send our children into a system that is the root, that is the front of the school to prison pipeline is a bizarre romanticization of the system. If we wanted to look at it differently, we could go to, to Exodus and recognize that even then, after Moses, with the word from God on high, said, y'all got to come up out of these circumstances, there were people who said, nah, we going back. We going back. So long has been the story of African Americans who want to go back into the failed system because it is what we're most comfortable with. But those of us who know better and quite frankly have experienced better must be held to account to ensure that no one ever goes back into a system that is literally systematically crushing babies. I'll finish here. 18% of all children in kindergarten are black. Yet 48% of all kindergartners, 5-year-olds who are suspended out of school are black. The numbers just don't add up. We know that children who are suspended earliest are suspended most often. This is the root of systemic racism. We cannot shout and scream at police officers who are systemically destroying the lives of innocent African Americans without first looking at children who are being educated in that same system to believe that there's something inherently wrong with black children. We can do better. You are looking at 2 black men who have started schools in our communities. Don't look past that. Don't let this notion of sacrificing the teachers union make you look past the obvious. And if we're going to go in a real conversation about what the teachers union did in New York with the United Federation of Teachers, there was a group called the African American Teachers Association who refused to join that group because of the racism inherent in that. Dr. Martin Luther King himself had to inject himself into that situation. And if the white teachers union cares so damn much about black people, why is it that so few black people are teaching? Don't let them fool you. They're doing wrong to us, and they know they're doing wrong. And all they need is a couple really smart black people to convince us to go back into slavery. And I ain't going to be one of them.
All right, Julianne, go. Enjoy. And I'm going to let me know if y'all want to jump in here. But Julianne, go.
Yes.
And I'm going to take this for 5 more minutes. We're way over time. But Julianne, go.
Well, first of all, ain't nobody trying to go back into enslavement, Dr. Perry. I think you know that, G.D. well. You know me better than that. And so I reject that whole conversation. What I would say is that teachers unions are not perfect, and neither are charter schools. And I'm not trying to set up an either or. I want to see the continuum. I want to see continuum. And we started this conversation by talking about what we wanted to hear at the debate between the Orange Man and Vice President Harris around education. And I think that there are things, the Orange Man would basically eliminate the Department of Education, which means eliminating Title I schools. And whatever flaws there are, Title I schools do trickle dollars down to poor children. So I don't think that, I hope that neither of you would suggest that we would eliminate the Department of Education. Secondly, when we look at education, there are some issues. There are issues with the teachers unions, but there are also issues with many charter schools. I mean, I've audited 2 that were abysmal failures, and they just didn't follow the rules.
But Julianne, two doesn't mean many. First of all,
no.
Okay. When you I'm sorry. When we say many, okay, give me a number. I don't like. Let me just real clear. I don't like
to do 2. I did them. They were both abysmal failures.
Okay, all right. So you did. So you did 2 that were abysmal. But how did you arrive at many or bad?
I'm looking at the data.
Where? What? No. Which data? Which data?
I don't have it in front of me, Roland, but
Absolutely. I want to see it. I mean, I want to see it. Go ahead.
I'll give it to you. But there were charter schools some of them are excellent, amazingly excellent, because they have probably the hands-on that Jalen is talking about. Some of them are not.
Yes, which is what I said earlier. And some of them you got transportation issues. Some of them you got special education issues. Some of them where they suspend the student, send them back, but keep the money. All of that is absolutely true. I still don't believe, though, that we need to set this up as a either or. It's an and conversation.
But that's what I said up front. I said we should not have a juxtaposition or this or that. We have to have a continuum of educational delivery. And like I said, some people want to do homeschooling. Some people, there's a continuum.
Well, and in fact, the largest growth in homeschooling in America, African-American parents. Joy, go.
Yes. So, and the reason they're doing that is because they're afraid of traditional schools. I mean, that's why they want to do homeschooling. Look, it sounds like we all agree that there is a pie and there have to be a range of options in that pie. And we want to give Black people options. We have been robbed of options and told that we can't even explore options because somehow it's an affront to traditional schools and, frankly, to teachers, some of whom are in our family. But ultimately, I don't care about teachers. I care about students. And frankly, it's about, what's the end product here? We have a failed system. If our students are not succeeding, we have to do something different. What we've been doing in the past is not working, and we know it is based in slavery. We know it is based in racism. We know it is based in misogyny. So we know we have to disrupt it. So I applaud you, gentlemen. The only thing I will say is there was a comment made here by HBCUs. I think it was Jalen. Well, I don't understand your point. I hope that you are not discouraging attendance at HBCUs.
No, that's not. Hold up. No. That's not what he said. What Jalen? Everybody breathe. The point that Jalen was making is that people, if you're going to complain about charter schools being founded by white folks, even racist white folks, it's some white folks that founded HBCUs. That's the problem when people start throwing stuff out. So the reality is there are white folks that have created, what's the dude who was the founder of Sears and Roebuck, Julius Rosenwald? He created Rosenwald schools all across the country that Black kids went to. The problem is when people sit here and start throwing stuff out. This is why we got to strip away awful, this, that, and the other, and call it what it is. Call out things that are good, call out things that are bad, replicate things that are going well, get rid of things that are failing. Congo, you got any part of this? You got anything?
I just want to say that I want to commend these two brothers for what they're doing. As somebody who works in schools and DEI issues, public, private, and charter schools, as somebody who speaks to kids across the country and parents, and look, as somebody who has kids in private schools now, like both of these brothers are saying, I've seen the entire range. In every school I go to, there are differences. And I just want to applaud these two brothers for the work, the continual work that they're doing. It's not a fad for them. It's not about enriching pockets. It's about improving the lives of our community. And before all of the headlines, these brothers have been about it. And so we can have all these conversations we need. But it's like Dr. Malveaux said about the continuum, like Dr. Perry said, like Mr. Rose said, the continuum, like you've been doing all of these years, Roland Martin, with school choice is a Black choice. We're trying to create the systems that work best for our children. So let's continue to have the conversation, celebrate our wins, and continue how we can work to build a community where our kids can be celebrated and not tolerated.
So we'll see if tomorrow education, and specifically charters and school choice and whatever becomes an issue in the debate. We'll see if it gets asked. We'll see if it gets answered. Jalen Rose, Dr. Steve Perry, we appreciate y'all joining us on the show. When you talk about Blackness and what happens in Black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause, to long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in Black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Check some money orders. Go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.